Go then, see if I care.
I'm done fighting, Sophia.
I never thought he'd actually leave. Now I have to face the truth.
For a long time, I believed that strength was about control. I told myself I was just being decisive and practical, but deep down I loved having the final say. In my marriage, my voice was always the loudest. My opinion was the most important. My needs always came first. I didn't see it as being cruel back then. I saw it as leadership. When I married Daniel, I thought I'd found the perfect partner. He was kind, smart, and patient, qualities I admired, but also ones I quietly took advantage of. He hated conflict, trusted me completely, and believed love meant compromise. I mistook his gentle nature for weakness, and without even realizing it, I turned our partnership into a hierarchy. At first, the changes were subtle. I decided how we spent our money, what we did on weekends, which friends we saw, and which opinions were reasonable. If Daniel disagreed, I'd shut him down with logic, sarcasm, or just silence. He usually gave in, telling himself it wasn't worth the fight, and every time he did, I felt like I was right. Over the years, my confidence hardened into domination. I'd correct him in front of our friends, laugh at his ideas, and roll my eyes when he tried to express frustration. I convinced myself I was just more capable. If things went well, it was because of me. If things went wrong, it was because he hadn't listened. The truth is, I was terrified of losing control. My career was demanding and unpredictable. At home, I wanted certainty. I needed things done my way because it made me feel safe. I never stopped to think about what it was costing him. The moment that changed everything felt completely ordinary. I came home one evening, exhausted and irritable, ready to complain that dinner wasn't ready. But instead, I found Daniel sitting calmly at the table, waiting for me. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just said he was tired. Tired of being spoken to like an employee, tired of feeling small in his own home, tired of shrinking himself so that I could feel bigger. My first reaction was to laugh. I thought it was just a fleeting moment of frustration. But that laugh was my biggest mistake. Something in his eyes changed. It wasn't anger, it was resolve. He told me he was leaving for a while. Not to punish me, not to threaten divorce, but to remember who he was without constantly apologizing for existing. Watching him walk out the door felt unreal. I expected to feel panic, then fury, but instead a profound silence filled the house. And for the first time, I had no one to command, no one to correct, and no one to blame. The days that followed were uncomfortable in a way I hadn't expected. I started to see just how much emotional labor Daniel had been carrying all along. All the small kindnesses, the patience, the stability, I had taken it all for granted. Without him, the house felt cold and mechanical. It was just a building, not a home. When he finally agreed to meet, he laid down boundaries I had never heard from him before. He said he loved me, but he would not return to a life where respect was conditional. If we were going to continue, it would be as equals or not at all. My first instinct was to argue, to defend myself, to explain why I was the way I was. But for the first time, I just listened. We started therapy, and it was brutal. I had to confront some very uncomfortable truths about myself. I saw how control had become my shield, how criticism had replaced communication, and how my need for power had destroyed our intimacy. I learned that dominance doesn't create security. It creates distance. Daniel changed too. He became firmer, clearer, and unafraid to say no. At first, it scared me. I had built my entire identity around being the one in charge. But slowly, I started to see something I had completely overlooked before. His strength had always been there. I had just been overshadowing it. There were setbacks, of course. Old habits don't just disappear. I'd catch myself interrupting him, correcting him, or trying to take over. But now, instead of backing down, Daniel would address it directly. And instead of dismissing him, I worked to adjust my behavior. Over time, something unexpected happened. Without the constant struggle for control, our relationship felt lighter. Our conversations became honest instead of strategic. We made decisions together instead of me dictating them. I didn't lose myself by letting go of control. I found a much better version of myself. The biggest test came when Daniel was offered a major career opportunity that would require us to move. The old me would have shut it down instantly. My life, my plans, my comfort would have been the priority. But this time I asked questions instead of making judgments. I listened instead of calculating how to get my way. We decided together. And that one word together became the foundation of everything that followed. We moved, we rebuilt, we struggled, and we adapted. There were moments I felt insecure and was tempted to reclaim my old authority, but I resisted. I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's an act of trust. Years later, when we welcomed our child into the world, I finally understood something that had escaped me for most of my adult life. Love isn't about being right. It's about being present. Parenthood stripped away any illusion of control I had left, and instead of fighting it, I learned to embrace the wonderful chaos. Daniel became an incredible father, patient, confident, and grounded. Watching him, I felt a sense of pride that wasn't possessive and a respect that wasn't based on fear. One evening, as we sat quietly after putting our child to sleep, I apologized. Not out of guilt, but out of a deep understanding. I told him that losing my imaginary crown was the best thing that ever happened to me. He just smiled and said that we had both grown. He was right. I no longer measure strength by authority or influence. I measure it by empathy, restraint, and the courage to change. I'm no longer the ruler of my household, and I don't ever want to be. I am a partner, and that, I've learned, is far more powerful. Thank you for listening.